Good morning, United Kingdom. Good morning, everyone. And we have another exciting week. Right, okay. So we've got, we're coming close to the end of lockdown. Lots of things are happening. We had Ninder Singh Johal on Friday, who's telling us lots of interesting bits about what he thinks was going to happen to the economy. But obviously, there is a big caveat being thrown in, and the big caveat is Indian variant, and I'm not quite sure what that means. So I do invite anybody who's listening to message in if you don't want to dial in and tell us why is it that the virus has a variant called Indian variant. What is it about the virus in India that's created a separate variant? And why is this? We had the UK virus and we had the Brazilian virus. We've got the Indian virus, the variant. Where are the variations coming in from? How do we know they're variations? What makes a variant a variant? Why is it not the virus, the same virus? Because if that's the case, this thing can go on and on and on and on and on forever. I think there's a good 200 different countries in the world. It's never going to stop, is it? So when do we know there are no more variants? That's the question. And is this a caveat to continue the lockdown and the openings and the lockdown, the re-lockdowns and all that stuff? So we'll discuss that later. But today we have a lovely Sharon, who's going to be our guest. We will have her on. The topic, obviously, for this week or today is how to use commercial bridging to buy that your property. Now, and I'll try and explain to you why this topic has come about. There's a lot of people out there whose move out to their new houses or flats or homes were in suspension during lockdown. So the COVID had the banks locked down and banks said, well, we're not lending anymore. So a lot of the applications were suspended or rejected or returned or held up. And there was only very few premier type of applications that were being approved, and that due only by a certain number of banks. So a lot of people caught in the vacuum. So they want to move out. They found that right house or the flat. The mortgage companies pulled the mortgage offer. Now they're sitting with their boxes packed in their previous address, whether it was a rental property or whether it was a previous mortgage property. They've found themselves in a bit of a catch-22 scenario, where the lenders have said, and even the banks, or generally the government said, don't move out, stay where you are. Well, it's really not that easy just to say that to someone, especially when you've got someone buying your property and that money will release the monies to purchase the onward property. But if the buyer doesn't complete with your property because they've had their mortgage offer pulled and they've been told they have to wait, and you've got a perfectly valid mortgage offer and the bank's willing to give you the money, you've found yourself out of pocket. A lot of people were caught offside in that environment. So a lot of applications started coming through that were based upon people wanting to get short-term bridge finance to complete the deal, the transaction. They're saying, look, we want to go and buy a new property. We've got good credit. We've got good finances. We're quite happy to pay slightly more than the average over the odd amount. But then later on, we will exit this bridge finance or this commercial finance with a term lending or high street mortgage. Now, the problem's been in that a lot of these bridges, these short-term commercial loans, were only taken out for 6 months or 9 months, but the lockdowns lasted for more than a year. So we've got lots of people coming through. We've got defaulted bridge loans or defaulted mortgage offers that were supposed to have been taken out and they weren't taken out. And they need to move fast. So the topic today is how to use commercial lending or commercial mortgages to complete your purchase of your personal house and then to exit obviously with your term lending. It's an interesting topic. It may be very relevant to lots of people who have somewhat been gazumped or stalled in their purchase. And it's an excellent way of moving forward. Secondly, the saying for this week is what? What's the saying? That's right. So you can never know what you're doing until you do not try. Right. So you never know what you can do until you don't try it. So it's a bit of a, get up and go type of a saying. You need to get up and you need to try. And, in lockdown, I would say a lot of people were probably kicking themselves, thinking, look, I should have tried to become self-employed, should have started my own job. I would have been better off now, X, Y, Z, and we never did. Now I'm stuck. Now I'm stuck in a limbo. I haven't lost my job. I'm on a furlough. I don't know if I'm going to get my job back, and I don't know if I've got enough money aside, or if I'm, geared up enough to be able to do what I wanted to do because the high street's changed. Now, to answer some of these questions, and I need to have a healthy discussion, that's what I call it. Got two lovely, we've got the Sharon, and we're also blessed to get another young lady by the name of Claire Turner as well. So Claire Turner is new to us. I was just checking with the team to say, is she somebody we've had on before? So both ladies, I think, are fairly new. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Sharon to come on, please, first. Do we have Sharon from backstage?
Hi.
Good morning, Sharon. How are you doing?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can hear you. We can.
Excellent.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
I can. It was intermittent, but I can hear you now.
Excellent. Is it better now, is it?
It's lovely. You've got a lovely clear accent and a lovely
Thank you so
voice.
Clear accent, that's good. That speaks volume. That speaks volumes. Okay. The good thing is that it's always difficult at the beginning. The more we get to know each other, it gets easier. Yes?
That is true. And I have partial deafness, bilateral perceptive deafness. So if I lose the first few words of a sentence, I've lost the sentence, but I've never lost the sentence.
Okay, I'm going to make particular note of that and make sure you get everything we are saying so we don't miss a word that you say.
That is
we
fantastic.
Also have, before we bring on our second guest, Claire Turner, I'm going to ask you, Sharon, give us a bit of a background about your history. Where are you from? Where are you going to? What do you do? And where are you now? Tell us a bit about yourself.
So my dad was in the army, and I was born down near Westmoors in Dorset. He was stationed there for 12 years. And I was born in 1961. 60 years ago, it was my birthday yesterday. I'm 60 yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. In the old days, I'd be collecting my pension, but I can't get for 7 years and a bus pass. Okay. So then when I was about 9 months old, we moved to Leicester, and my family came from Leicester, historically from Leicester and Nottingham. So my nan was in Leicester, so they went and stayed with my nan. My dad was one of 11. My mum was one of 5, big family.
Wow.
So I was brought up in Leicester till I was 18 and then went to Polytechnic in Portsmouth, did a degree in geography. The reason I did that, it was only 8 hours of lectures a week, so I could do the sport that I love to do. And I followed an old boyfriend as well. But then I became a teacher. I qualified as a teacher in 1985. Worked in mainstream secondary till 2001. So at the age of 40, I decided to change my career, and I continued on in working in lifelong learning and education in post-16, but I also have my own massage and reflexology business as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so in the woo-woo days when it was strange, when it was called alternative therapies, but I taught that, and in 2008 my mum died, and I just give it all up, just stopped it, and I went into management for a large local authority. And after 30 years, in 2015, I took redundancy. Had a hip operation. It serendipitously happened as such. 2015 to 2019, I worked for 2 large charities aligned for mental health. I recruited and trained volunteers to support people with a huge range of mental health challenges in advocacy. And I recruited them, I trained them, and I become an advocate as well. And from 2017, I started to invest in property because I was in a situation where I had to make a choice, carry on life where I didn't really want to be, but I had to make the best of it, or choose, do something different, get out of it. And that's what I strategically did. It was the first time I'd really done things strategically for me in my life. So I set a plan out in 2017 that within, on the 1st of April 2017, I suppose it was the biggest April Fool's joke on me, I decided to commit to investing in property. I made the decision, and that within 2 years I'd be in a completely different stage. And that was a commitment. I knew that I had a 2-year commitment. So it was all or nothing with whatever I was doing. On the 12th of the 12th at 12 noon, I handed my notice in at work. 31st of January 2019, I left my job, and I do what I'm doing now. I live in a state of shackiness, I call it. That's
state of shackiness.
I've written some books. Well, I've contributed to some books. I always wanted to be an author. Here they are, all these books. But,
and are they all the books on property, are they?
No,
or on management?
Nothing to do with property. Property is integral to that, because for me, property is only, it funds my lifestyle, it helps people, it aligns me to my highest values, and I can do what I love to do. And that's what it's about. So property is mentioned in the books, but it's mentioned how it helped me to do what I wanted to do.
Excellent. Okay. So that's a wonder. That's quite a very colourful, very precisely laid out. Obviously speaks volumes of your background. Dad was in the army, so I assume your dad was probably a sergeant or a corporal or something.
No,
was
he was always picking potatoes. He was naughty. He didn't get above the highest rank because he was an advocate for the weak people, the people that were bullied in the army. There's a lot of bullying going on, and he did not like sergeant majors that took advantage of people. So he was punished in many ways. But when he died, in his funeral, that song, I Did It My Way, Frank Sinatra, that epitomised him. 12 years he was there.
Okay. So he retired as what?
Say again. Sorry.
What rank did he retire as?
The one that was the lowest, I think. Whatever that was.
He was a soldier.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a soldier. Yeah, it's a soldier.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first non-commissioned rank is a lieutenant corporal, so it's one stripe. So if he was below that, he was a soldier.
No, he was a corporal. I remember him talking about that.
Right, excellent. Right, okay. Lovely formatted history there. Can't miss it. I don't think you missed anything that was important. So while we wait for everyone to absorb what was said there, I'm going to call on the lovely Claire Turner. Is she backstage? Let's see the difference. Let's see what Claire Turner's life is like.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
Morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. Let me just turn the radio off. Wow.
Excellent. You're walking around.
To be with you. Yeah.
Excellent. Lovely. Right. Okay. Just want to ask you, Sharon, you're in Leicester, aren't you? Yes?
Hold on.
You're in Leicester?
No, I live in Essex. I left Leicester in 1979 when I was 18. And I've travelled around since. I've worked in America, I've been in France, a few places in Europe.
Excellent. You're in Essex. You're Essex. And yourself, Claire, your whereabouts are you?
I'm in North Warwickshire. I'm right in the Midlands. I'm not far from where Sharon used to live. So yeah, I'm right in the centre of the UK.
That's right. You're Warwickshire County. You're in Shakespeare County.
I am in Shakespeare's County. Yes, that's exactly where I am.
Excellent. So what part of Warwickshire are you in? Are you Stratford upon Avon?
No, totally the other end. So I'm North Warwickshire. That's South Warwickshire. So yeah, I'm completely at the other end.
Okay. So you're. Let me try and guess. Pardon?
Nuneaton.
Near to Nuneaton. I live in a place called Grendon. Yeah, Grendon's about 20 minutes from Nuneaton. So yeah, not far.
Excellent. Right, we've got you, tracked you down. That's good. Okay. Tell us a bit about yourself, Claire. What's the background? Where are you? Where are you going to? How are you doing now? Because I mean, a lot of people we talk to obviously have gone through the motions of lockdown, so each has got their own variation of the effects that lockdown has had on them. So tell us, where are you now? Where have you come from? Where are you going to? What's the background? Are you originally from Warwickshire? Are you from somewhere else?
Yeah. So yeah, I am a Warwickshire girl, born and bred. I have spent some time over in the States when I was a teenager, but wow. I've been in this country. So bit of my background in a nutshell. I was born to an entrepreneurial family. My dad was in the building trade when I was born. And due to working himself too hard, he ended up having to move business because basically the doctor said to him, you're going to be dead if you carry on doing what you're doing. So he moved into the plant hire and tool sales industry. And very much my entire childhood was about watching growth, watching what happens when you work hard. Now, some of it was at the detriment to us in that my mum and dad were so committed to their business that tended to come first. And I know exactly why they did that. And I admire them for what they did. For me, I feel like my whole life has been a great big learning curve. It's been one experience after another that has seriously helped me to become the person that I am today. And basically, I was one of those people that I got caught as a sheep when I was younger. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Well, I really wanted to go into the world of acting and entertainment, but I was kind of talked out of that and told, people like us don't do things like that, and you need to go and do something sensible and get a proper job.
That sounds like an Asian family. That's the type of thing the Asian families would say.
Yeah. Well, it's exactly the same, I think in all cultures in some ways. And so I bought my first house when I actually completed on my first house. You talk about dates, Sharon, on my 23rd birthday. And I kind of at that point was like, right, I think I need to be responsible now and get a proper job. I worked in car sales. Loved it, but it wasn't the most stable of jobs. So I was like, right, what's a proper job? I'll go and work in a bank. And I spent the next 13 odd years of my life working in the corporate world, working in the financial services arm of initially HSBC Bank, And then I moved over to become self-employed when I was about 25. So I've worked for myself for 20 plus years now. So I'm no stranger to that. The thing was, what the interesting part of the journey for me now to reflect back on it is I absolutely had to do that to go on the journey that I've been on, because one of the things that happened in those early days was I reconnected with a friend that I'd gone to school with, and she gave me a copy of a book called The Celestine Prophecy. And I don't know if either of you have ever come across that book.
Self what?
The Celestine Prophecy.
Celestine Prophecy. Okay, no,
Yeah.
I haven't heard of it, haven't read it.
Yeah.
Have you, Sharon?
I bought it.
Sharon?
I bought it from Tesco's a couple of years ago, and I looked at it. I thought, oh, that's deep. I had a little thing, and I returned.
Wow, look at the commonality. Both of you have been in the US. Both of you have been working extremely hard. Both of you are very colorful in background. Both of you are extremely well spoken and articulate. And both of you come from a very strong background. Mom and dad working hard, in a profession. So continue, please.
Yeah.
Claire, yeah.
Yeah. So when I read that book, I felt like I'd come home, because my entire life I've had a spiritual connection, but I didn't know what it was. My
Excellent.
family weren't into that kind of thing. They didn't know about that kind of thing, and nobody around me did really. My only kind of reference was, I remember my mum going for a reading with a medium when I was a teenager, and I was so excited about it, because I was like, wow, this is another realm that is what I feel like I'm all about. So from reading that book, it started me on this journey of self-discovery. And actually a big part of my journey was at 29. I had a complete breakdown, or breakthrough, depending on how you want to look at it, because I realized that I wasn't living my life with me as the most important person in it. And that needed to change. So I decided to start learning about new things. I trained as a coach. I started doing various other bits of training. I started studying EFT. I studied a bit of NLP, and I started to really, really develop me. Now, I'm not somebody that's going to sit here and say I've got certificates in all these different things, because I haven't. Because for me, I didn't come here to be an expert of one area. I came here to inspire the world, to motivate the population, and to encourage people to live their most amazing life. So I've literally in the last couple of days reopened my one-to-one work, which I haven't done for a couple of years, and I'll explain why I haven't done it for a couple of years. So coming into 2011, it was the start of what I call my 10 years in the room of fear, because the universe had me go into this period where it was kind of really 2010 it started, and it had me face every single thing that I needed to face to become the person that I am today, to go out there and help awaken the human race. Because for me, this last 12 months and what we've lived through with COVID is absolutely nothing to do with a virus. It's about the human race learning about who they are. And the only thing that the universe could give to the whole human race for them to all understand it was a virus. And so now, going through all what I went through, and I went through a horrific miscarriage. I nursed my mum through terminal cancer to her passing. I lost both of my grandparents, my father-in-law, my closest aunt that had been my rock during my mum's illness. I gave birth to a baby. I had a business go completely and utterly wrong. I had somebody accuse me of all sorts of things that I didn't do. I was made bankrupt by somebody else. I had fundamental money issues. And through all of that, I completely discovered a power that I didn't know that I had. And it showed me that, experience is the mother of all lessons. And for us to become the most amazing version of ourselves, we have to be tried to our core. And there were times when, I kind of screamed at the universe and said, really? Like, are you kidding me? I don't think I can cope with any more. Yet in our adversity, if we feel into it enough and if we heal from it, we always find gems and we always find nuggets of gold. And that's exactly what I did. So during that time as well, I did a lot of motivational speaking, and I absolutely love speaking. I absolutely love going out there and inspiring people and helping people change their lives. So over the last year, I've been coming out of that period of everything being a challenge, and I've now moved into a space of just amazing. It really, really is amazing. So my work now consists of connections. I'm a joint venture consultant, so I bring people together. I connect people together. And an example of that is, it could be, well, I had somebody contact me last week that is in Asia, wants to do some business with some companies over here in the UK. They're in the gold mining industry, and they've asked me if I can make some connections for them. So that's what I do. The bigger part of all of that then is the speaking, and is getting my message out there. Excellent. That is kind of channeled through me, because a lot of the stuff, when I get speaking and I start going into flow, it's not my words, it's words coming from a higher realm that I'm being, guided to share with people. Because ultimately my philosophy is that being you is all you ever came here to be, and we can all live our own version of what I describe as utopia, as in utopia. And so it's about you going out there and saying,
okay, utopia,
I can live my most
that.
amazing life. Yeah. So that's me in a slightly bigger nutshell. And I'm literally just on the cusp of launching an online TV channel where I'm going to be interviewing, inspiring people that I think have got amazing stories. And the whole philosophy of that is about helping people, and especially, the situation that we've got going on now. And it's why I've just launched this one-to-one work that I'm doing. I've got a 6-month program that I'm doing, and it's about helping people to recreate their life. Because the thing is the governments have been very good at telling people what not to do for the last year, and now we're coming out the other side of it. All of the habits have been broken, everybody's lives have changed fundamentally, and there's no guidance being given as to what to do next. And so I'm going to hold you to that with that.
Claire, I'm going to hold you up to that, because that's interesting. That's a topic, we've got this week is, what's the topic? What's it again? Okay, so the topic for the week is, you never know what you can do until you don't try it. And this goes back to motivation. Sharon, you're going to say something about that. I tried to compare. Now, look, it's funny. Life story seems to be similar, but yet Claire comes from a very entrepreneurial background, and Sharon is from an armed forces background. Yet there's lots of commonalities there. I found even in the brief that was given from both of you. So the same for this week is, you never know what you can do until you don't try it. So you've got to get up and do things. So Sharon, after listening to Claire, what have you got to say? What do you find that?
When I finished my O-levels at the age of 16, I remember sitting on a bus with my mum, and she said, right, go get a job in a factory now. Because that was all we ever did in Leicester, work in a factory. The posh people worked in an office, they got a proper job. But from the age of 9, I'd set myself a goal. It's in one of the books. I wanted to be free, because every summer holiday from the age of about 9 or 10, I used to go and stay with my gran. So at the age of 9, I was looking at the seas, Inglemells it was, looking at the sea, looking at the birds, and thought, I want to be free like the birds. Not like I am now when I have to go back to my nan. Because in those days, when you were told what you had to do, you did it. If you didn't, you got punished. So I thought, I want to do this forever. So I spent 50 years striving for that. When I was 15, I had a fight with a girl who tried to bully me, a big one she was. And my mum said, you're so embarrassing. Go and do something. Go do judo or something. And I went, okay then. Now, she said, you're not going to be fighting in the street. Well, at the time, I didn't know that. But my family were boxers. Every male was a bare-knuckle boxer. And, and I didn't know that. So I went into judo. And then I vowed I wanted to be a judo coach and get me black belt. So that is one reason I went to Portsmouth, but to do my degree. But my mum said, well, what are you going to do? There's nothing for you to do. You have to go work in a factory. She said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know, but I'm not working in a factory. So that decision took me. I went and then did, I left school with 3 O-levels, all grade C's, English, I think it was English, biology and history. I mean, what use were they? So I went on and did O-level. I did A-levels. Only in the only place that would accept me were to wear a school uniform. And I did geography, sociology and French. I failed my O-level in geography. I failed my French, but my teacher let me carry on. But she let me do sociology because the only thing they could give me. So I left sixth form, going to Portsmouth. So it was all about, I was very stubborn, didn't want to do what everybody else did. And that's how I've been in my life. And that's been, you know, the saying about you don't know till you've tried it. I constantly push the boundary bit by bit. And
excellente.
And
I'm feeling motivated listening to both of you, because you're look, the way I look at people, I look at everybody as a inspiration, because there's lots of things people do. They seem to feel, oh, I haven't done anything. I'm just a simple 9-to-5er. All I did was this and that. But really, when you look back at anyone's life story, there's lots of interesting things that people do, lots of different things they do. Lots of courageous things they do, but that seem quite normal, but they're not. I mean, to get up and move a city. I mean, I know people who've been living in the same city, the same town, same street, living in the same house for the whole life. And I know people who've got the courage to change houses and environment and jobs every 5 years. And it takes a lot of courage. And that's what an entrepreneur is like. And talking of entrepreneurs, we have the infamous Mr. Lakhi Singh, the business and the property fixer, who's waiting backstage. We have him on, and we can ask him the topic of today, which is how to use commercial lending to buy that house. Because a lot of people were caught out, gazumped rather, once the lockdown happened. And as Claire said, the government spent a lot of time telling people what they can't do, but spent no time in teaching what they can do. But Lakhi Singh is one of those people who tells people what they can do, who motivates them. And maybe a bit of a surprise to both Claire and Sharon, Lakhi's a bit of an NLP expert as well. He's a very avid follower of the famous, what's his name, Lakhi Singh? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yes. Well, what's the name? Tony Robbins. No, is it Tony Robbins? Is it?
Tony Robbins, that's the one, yeah.
That's right. An avid follower of Tony Robbins. Some people think he even looks like Tony Robbins in the dark. So, Lakhi Singh, tell us. You won't know until you don't try it. You've got the house. You haven't got the mortgage. The mortgage has been pulled because the banks aren't lending. Is commercial lending, bridging finance, a solution to get that property as long as you've got an ability to get out of the bridge in 6 months or 9 months? Is that a good solution?
It can be. I think it all depends on the circumstances. I mean, it is probably the most expensive way of getting money. But if you've got enough assets, reserves, or good income to be able to exit, and got a backup plan which is concrete, then it's a perfect way of getting a property, because mortgage companies are being quite slow. So you may lose that really cool property that you're looking for just because of the inability of banks to act quickly enough.
Excellent. Well, we've got 2 wonderful guests on, Lakhi. We've got the lovely Sharon, who's in the city of, she's in Essex now, but she's moved around the country a bit. originally from, I think, Leicester, or the parents were, was bought up in the south of England. I think Devon side, was it? In Garrison, somewhere in Devon? I'm not wrong.
For 9 months, I was near Bournemouth. And then for my childhood, up to the age of 18, I was brought up in a council estate in Leicester.
Wow, that's just like a Garrison. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And then you...
Yeah.
And then we've got the lovely Claire Turner, who's a bit of a universal energy at the moment. I can feel the energy from her in the screen. I'm sure I can plug in and get somewhere. I think
Claire's frozen.
Hey,
yeah, no, she's not frozen. She's a very warming person. I'll have you know, sir. She's a very warming person. She's not a frozen person. She's a lovely person. So both ladies have got lots of commonalities. And this is not to say Claire's life is any less colourful than Sharon's life, but there's a lot of commonalities I can see there. And maybe everyone's life has got a commonality. I don't know. It's the way you listen to people and how you pluck out those pertinent bits. Lakhi Singh is a business and a property fixer. So he's the type of man everybody wants to speak to. He's in the square mile. He's a bit of a mover and a shaker, a bit of like a Michael Jackson without the moonwalk. So, Lakhi Singh, I invite you to take over with both Claire and Sharon and tell us whether it is true that if you don't get up and try, you'll never know.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get stuck in just day-to-day living and forgetting about what the possibilities are. So if you live in a state of possibility and your potential, then it's a completely different life, isn't it?
It's a very short statement from the infamous Mr. Singh. He's obviously trying to keep us dry, firstly for more knowledge. But both ladies have actually sacrificed a lot of their life as well, I think, you know, looking after someone or being there for someone. What do you learn, Sharon, from the lockdown in terms of what is it, like Claire said, this is about the universe teaching people about themselves. Is that what happened to you? Did you start learning more about yourself during lockdown, or was it different?
For me, right at the beginning, I kept my mouth shut. I felt my degree was in geography, so I used to teach it, and I always remember reading. Jeremy Irons did this. It was a mockumentary of a plastic bag, and I'd always learned about what people were doing to the environment. So for me, right at the beginning, I kept my mouth shut and I watched. And I observed, and I thought, Mama Gia is telling the world, she's showing us she's not happy. We are just a little speck. We're like a little mosquito, if we can be, in the whole universe. You know, man, there are 12 universal laws, plus others. There's laws of thoughts. There's laws about all sorts of things. How can people think they're a law until themselves? And it's like your mum. When your mum's not happy, don't you know it? So she's not happy. And so I just carried on with what I was doing. I was lucky. A very serendipitous experience happened when I said yes to the opportunity of contributing to a book, writing a book. And I've become part of a major charitable arm called the World Game Changer Series. So that has enabled me to go global, because I can, like Claire, I connect people to opportunity. I bespokely connect people to opportunities. And my mission, that's my mission. My vision is connecting people worldwide to opportunities so that they can create their own happiness. And it's what Claire's talking about. It's about finding you, coming home to you. Because what's happened since the 1980s, since we've had the advent of all computer stuff, you know, the internet, social media, people have gone outside themselves to find what they think they're looking for. But the light is within. And last year in Britain, people have 3 opportunities to connect with themselves. Eventually they did. And for me, it's just to continue, like Claire says, I'm just a channel of energy. So I inspire people so that they can be inspired. I enable them so they can be enabled, so they enable themselves to be where they want to be, to do what they want to do, to live in their higher goals. Because the thing is about doing what you want to do, it's got to be purposeful. If it's not purposeful, how can you live a life of shappiness, as I call it? It's not meaningful. It's not fulfilling. And so many people are successful, or they achieve and they're successful in their lives. But there's one thing missing, and that's their connection with themselves and their ability to create the Edzo effect, change their state of their body, their endorphins, their dopamine, their serotonin and their oxytocin, by raising their state. You know, you're then connected to, it's like a radio station. You're on that frequency, you're connected with the people. So for me, to summarize, lockdown provided an opportunity to do what I was continuing to do. And like Claire, from 2010 to 2020, I was living in a void. I had a hip operation. I was in bed well over many months because I fractured 8 bones in my ankle. I was bedridden. I then fractured another leg. So I was left on my own in bed, crawling across the floor to go to the loo. So, and we were looking after my husband's parents. My dad died in November. They both died in 2018. And the one thing that I learned then, my father-in-law, he had dementia, Pick's disease. And I would sit with him for an hour and a half, feeding him his lunch, just sitting there, being in the present moment, to make sure that the food could go down his mouth so he wouldn't choke. So it's like the last 10 years has prepared me for what's happened last year.
Wow. Okay. Claire, there seems to be a lot more of a commonality between both of you ladies, more than I thought. Are you finding that? Is Claire there? She's frozen in the car? Singh? Is Lakhi there?
I'm here, yes.
Yeah. Okay, Lakhi, tell me. Give me a comment, sir. That's quite interesting. Someone who's selfless, someone who's been looking after her parents, her uncles, her family. Well, what do you say to that?
I think it takes a lot of, to call it, I think we're brought up in a very sort of selfish society. I mean, for Sharon to do all the things that she did, I think that's what anybody would do, really. And you know, if you've got your parents or family are not well, you have to look after them. So I think it's the right thing to do. It's the godly thing to do. The problem you have in society today is that if you're not how do you say financially secure, or you've got other things going on, it's not always easy to try and juggle all those sort of things. So I mean, luckily the government does actually give care allowances, and it allows people to take time out, at least to sort of pay for their subsistence, to be able to help a loved one who may be frail or in a difficult position. So, but I think just at an emotional level, I think it's very full on. So Sharon, what do you say are the tips to try and keep yourself focused? Because it's actually very draining. It's a bit like, you know, it's probably 10 times the effort of looking after a small child in some ways, because, you know, there's a lot of care for an elder. 24 hours is really what you need. So how do you sort of manage that? It must be quite tough.
Well, my mum died in 2008. I had no control over the process. I learned from that. So in 2018, when we had the opportunity, we both taken redundancy, to look after my mother and father-in-law, my husband became the main carer, and I was working with an advocacy charities. So the thing is that I used to say to my husband this: when they pass, when they've gone, will you look back and say, I'm glad I did, rather than I wish I had? That's the first thing.
Wow.
So I knew that my dad was going to die. Well, they all do, don't they? But he was 88. So I strategically planned in the process in 2017 that when the opportunity came to be with my dad, I would enable that to happen financially and time. So it was me last year that worked with all the services and the hospitals to go to Leicester. I was going up to Leicester every week and staying with my dad and helping, sleeping over with the hospital. But I also knew the systems. So the first thing is that big reason at the end of the day, after the event, that day when the hole is open for them, the final curtain draws, can you say, I'm glad I did rather than I wish I had? That is just so important.
Wow.
So many people, they live in regret. They pay, the bigger the regret on earth, the bigger the rent you pay. They can't close the circle. So I had to do that. The second thing is know about the services that are available to you to enable you to do what you need to do. And not a lot of people are aware that in Britain, local authorities provide advocacy services. So if somebody is ill or needs help and they've got nobody to support them with what they need help, there's advocacy services there. Local governments have to legally provide those, the statutory ones. So under the Care Act advocacy, mental health advocacy, deprivation of liberties advocacy, anybody on a health and care, program, they're entitled to an advocate. Now, the thing is with that, you have to be aware of that. So you can contact if you look up your local authority and advocacy providers, you'll find the one, and they're independent and they're free. And they know the services they provide. So if you need help, you feel you've got nobody supporting you, or the person has nobody supporting you, or you've got a family member that isn't acting in the best interest of the person that you need to support, contact the local advocacy provider and ask them tell them what the issue is. And then obviously have a form to fill in, but they will identify which advocate will support you, or if not, they will be able to signpost you to the right service. That's the second thing, because it's immediate help you need. The third thing is, if you go on the DWP website, you will find the key information that you need. And also, if you Google in your local area with your local authority, organisations that provide support for you, whether they're charitable, whether they are community interest company, or whether they are statutory and paid public services, you'll be able to find a way. Because the thing is, there are so many people, and it was worse last year. There were so many people that don't know what they're entitled to, not just financially, but the emotional support. Because when you are a carer, you become that person. You can't escape. Now, it's one thing looking after the person, but it's another thing dealing with yourself. Because the one thing that happens when you start caring for somebody is you feel guilty. You feel all those thoughts because you've got to do that. And you give up yourself to deal with that. So it's about finding the right support. And it's about being vulnerable and just saying, I need help. Because if you don't need help, you'll either not make it through it. And you've probably met this situation. You've got the lady that cares for the husband or vice versa. Now, the husband or the poorly person, what could happen to them is they'll deteriorate, but they'll carry on living, whereas the person that's cared for them has taken the brunt emotionally will die. And that costs a huge amount of money. And this is where another thing to do with dementia comes in. But there's some key tips for you. It's about finding the right service for what you need at the time to support the person you're supporting and supporting you. But in relation to that, you want to live through this, hopefully. So it's about getting the support there. But the thing that will make you stronger more than anything else is this. At the end of the day, if I survive this with this person, especially, when it's terminal, am I going to say, I'm glad I did rather than I wish I had? And when my dad...
I think, Sharon,
important.
that phrase itself being satisfied that you've done the best that you can. I think that speaks volume. We've got Claire back. Claire, are you here with us?
I am. Sorry, I was just doing the school run. So yeah, I'm just on my way back home.
Not a problem. Not a problem. We're very flexible. We are very versatile. Right. So, I mean, both of you women have got a exceptional, empathetic side about that. I think both of you have got some experiences in. It's like you said, Claire, maybe Sharon's one of those women as well who has found herself as well. Maybe not, not during lockdown. I think she's probably already on the way there, but I think lockdown has probably has improved or polished that self-awareness. So we'll ask Lakhi Singh, because Lakhi Singh's, an NLB. Like I said, he is like the Tony Robbins of the square mile, and a bit like Michael Jackson without the moonwalk. Lakhi Singh, what do you say to all of this? Is this believable? Can people be that good? Is there that goodness around? Are we now realigning our values because of lockdown?
Well, I think a lot of people, not necessarily Sharon, I think Sharon's already very, self-aware, and I think she's seen quite a lot, and I think she's sort of already working in a sort of different level compared to most people, I would actually imagine. But I'd say most people who probably don't have as many things to deal with are probably having more of a realization, because they've got to spend time with themselves to try and understand themselves. Mm-hmm. So I think it is probably been a good time for reflection. It's like a break from life in some ways. Mm-hmm. So you could actually argue that COVID-19 for a year has probably been a good thing if you're going to look at it from a point of view of self-reflection. What is life about? Why are we here? What are we meant to be doing? What's the purpose? So I think so it all depends on the nature. You can look at it from a point of view of I'm not working, I can't go out, I could die. So that's looking at it from external. But you could look at it internally. I've got time out to reconsider what's important in my life.
Okay, so it's a bit like Mr. Khalid says, what's the point? So it's a bit like that, thinking about the purpose for things. Claire, within our last 3.5 minutes, could you summarize what you think you've got planned for the 2021 in terms of expecting the lockdown to finish? What is it that you are doing now, and what is the universe telling you to do for the next immediate future?
Okay, so the rest of this year for me is about massive growth, and it's about really putting a skyrocket behind my speaking and what I do with that, because I agree with everything that Lakhi said, and I agree with everything that Sharon said, and we've got to look at this as an opportunity. I've been called a controversialist over the last year. I've been called a conspiracy theorist, and I'm neither of those things. The thing is,
controversialist, right?
Yeah,
I'd like to know more about that. What does that mean?
Well, I ask the questions that other people don't ask. I point out the things like, when they've been reporting all of what they've reported on the news, they never report the full picture. If you look at what mainstream media do, if the picture was a 100-piece puzzle, they show the general public 4 pieces, because that's all they want them to do. And the most interesting thing about the last year is they've put the fear of God into everybody. They've engulfed people with fear. And what happens when we engulf people with fear? It lowers the immune system. So the very thing that everybody needed to keep strong in the last year, the tactics of the powers that be currently have lowered that, and they have put people in a position of scarcity. They've put people in this position of fear. And so now it's time for people like me and people like Sharon and people like Lakhi to come out and say, no, hang on a second. You've got your own mind. You've got your own choices.
Wow.
You have got a reason to be here. You have got a purpose. And if that upsets the apple cart and if that pisses people off, well, then good. Because goodness comes from disruption. And that is exactly what we've lived in the last year. We have lived major disruption. And it is time now for us as a race to come together, because we've experienced all sorts of different things, and we've experienced race wars, and that for me is something that I never understand. You know, I was brought up that you go in the garden, you look at the flowers, they're different shapes, they're different sizes, and they are different colors. We're all the same though, they're all flowers. And it's
well, that goes okay. Let's hold you to that thought then, because we're summarizing. We don't have enough time to complete the conversation, but I think we need to call you back in. But Lakhi,
let's do it.
Who do you think you are? What type of flower do you think? Are you a daisy, are you?
No, Lakhi's not a daisy.
A bit of a daisy, Lakhi.
More like a lily, actually.
Lily.
Like a lily.
Right.
Like a lilac
okay, so
lily.
more like a lily. Okay, so
Lucky
lilac
lilac
like a lily.
Lucky lilac lily, I think.
Lily. Sharon, what do you think you are then? What type of flower do you think you are?
I am a multicoloured ranunculus.
What?
A ranunculus.
Ranunculus. I've never heard of that. That sounds ranunculus.
It's bulbous. I've got lots of petals, and it rises and it shines.
Wow.
Needs water. And like that, I've got loads of them in me.
Excellente. And so coming back to Claire. Claire, tell me, what do you think you are? What type of flower are you?
I think I'd like to be a lilac lotus, because
it's lotus.
Yeah, I'm with Lakhi on the lilac. It's all about that.
I'm probably then
calming energy.
Excellent. I'm probably more than a praying mantis, waiting for that fly. Sort of pretending to be a flower, but really a meat eater. Okay, with that, how long have we got left? Right, with that, we're going to have to say goodbye today. Claire, I'm going to have to love you to come back again and leave you. Sharon, same to you. I think having both of you on the same show is too much for everybody. So I'm going to call you on, we're going to arrange to have you on separately. Claire, are you available for us?
I am.
Huggies to everybody, apparently. We've got a big shout out from the very famous Rajesh and everybody else. And John Smith, everyone giving us a shout out this morning. They've loved the conversation. Sharon, to you too, thank you so much for your time. We'll have you on again. I'll ask the team to give you a confirmation of a time. Lakhi Singh, we know you're a busy man. Keep on making those moves, even though they're not moonwalking moves. They're probably more, what was it, lily moves, were they? Are you lily? What are you? What did you say you were? Probably more of a daffodil.
Lucky lily lilac.
Lily, yeah, lily, lilac, lily. Me being a praying mantis, I'm going to be looking for my next fly. See you soon, everyone. On Lakhi Singh, the business.